curious to hear what those are and what your spiciest take is.
Yeah, most definitely. Like my most spiciest take around design systems is like there shouldn't be a contribution process. And it took me a while to kind of realize that, but it was kind of the case where it's like the past couple of teams and companies, and anytime like someone's like, oh yeah, we should really have this component, it's usually the case where that team needs that component built and they don't want to do it. So and it's also, I believe in like kind of the idea where it's like components should more likely graduate into the design system. So they should be used out in the wild. They should be like, hey, this is the different use cases. There should be like duplicates and whatnot. And then the design system is there to kind of like, all right, let's think about the API. This is all the use cases, and let's like graduate into our design system. So I think that's like my most spiciest thing. We're giving me a lot of flack for that, but I'm gonna hold on that. So
I like that. I like that a lot. Almost as seeing like design systems as like the place where it comes to get standardized and like, okay, we've got 5 different versions of this one. Let's figure out what the actual best use case is for everybody too. I like that. I hope I would love to hear other people's opinions on that too. I think that's a great one to start with. But thank you very much. It's so excited to have you here on our show. We are officially live on all the different platforms. So I want to thank everybody for tuning in here today. This is our show called the Design Annotation Live, where we have interviews with trendsetters who are designing and building beautiful products. Today we have with us Adekunle. If you want to go ahead and introduce yourself, tell us who you are, what you do. We'd love to get to know you.
Yeah, for sure. My name is Adekunle Oduye. I'm a UX engineer based out of Brooklyn, New York. At the moment, I'm at the tail end of my sabbatical. So I've been enjoying the summer, making lots of fruit syrups and traveling. So it's been a non-tech summer. So
I like that non-tech summer. I think more people should start adopting that. It's like instead of hot girl summer, it's now non-tech summer, and I like that. I like that a lot. Some fruit syrups. You've been doing good. Some tactile things, making it with your hands. Getting away from the computer. That's fantastic. So you should coin that if you haven't yet. That can be yours. The non-tech summer leading.
Nah, it's gonna be a thing. I'm gonna set it up, and it's gonna be like a whole group movement where it's like we're not gonna have no like 1 week no tech. We're just gonna do some random things. So.
We're going to a cabin in the woods. We're going we're going off the grid. Nobody's allowed to bring your phone. This is a no tech retreat. I like that. There's probably a good future in that. Good want from the community there too. So if you do start that up, let me know. I'd love to check in with that.
For sure. See, I get all these ideas, and this is because like I haven't been working in tech. So there's a plus with that. So
there you go. Clear your mind. I love that. I love that. Thank you. Well, thank you very much for sharing. I'm super excited to get to know more about who you are, your other spicy takes on design systems too. If you could maybe tell us too a little bit about what the day-to-day usually looks like for somebody in design systems. I think that would be super helpful for those people who are watching.
Yeah, for sure. So I'll kind of go back to like my last opportunity, what I was working in. So usually it's kind of the case where it's like you have like, I would say, reactive work and you have like proactive work. So let's say I'm working on a component, usually it's kind of started with some sort of like spec that I've kind of shared out to kind of see like all the use cases for this component I'm building and whatnot. And, obviously like if you're working in a small team, but you have to kind of be there for people to ask questions, whatnot. So there's like a support, like reactive work where it's like people ask questions about like, oh, how can I use this component, or is it possible to use this component, or I have this UI that I have already, can the design system support it and whatnot. So I'll kind of break it down to like those kind of factions where it's like obviously like 80% of the time it's like more proactive work where you're like either building components, like working with stakeholders, or maybe even like prototyping, because a lot of times there's a case where design system folks are kind of tasked with doing that, especially if you have a small team, company. And then that 20% is like just kind of being more reactive with like meetings and like support, if that makes sense.
Awesome. Yeah, that's been similar to what we've heard from a few of the other design system folks. So like sometimes they have office hours or something like that where everybody can come in and ask you questions. How do you best use the system too? That's awesome to hear. Could you tell us a little bit about your specific journey in design systems, like how you got started, how you got to where you're at now too? We'd love to know more about that.
Yeah, for sure. Like, I'm not even gonna lie. Like, I didn't really like design systems starting out. I was more of like a product designer where I was like do a lot of prototyping and whatnot. So I was like, I just want to be able to take my ideas from concept to completion like very quickly.
Mm.
And I realized that like one instance where I was like rethinking everything, where it's like, oh, the buttons and like colors and all this other stuff, and I was like, there has to be a better way. And I kind of by accident fell into design systems because I was like, well, I know if I wanted to kind of build products that are scalable and not have to think about it when I'm like building features, then it makes sense to kind of build a robust design system to kind of have all that baked in. So like I could just like grab and go. So that's kind of like how I started out. Like I never planned on being design systems. It's kind of something that I fell into based on like the needs of based on the needs and the opportunities I saw. So
That's awesome. Very cool. And do you have any advice maybe for anybody who's looking to get into design systems as like oh, if you're interested in these different things, sort of like you had mentioned, like you might be good for a career in design systems, or like, do you have any advice for anybody who's actually looking to break into the field?
yeah, so if you hate inconsistency and you like to be lazy and you like other people to be lazy, I think design systems are a place because I think that's kind of how like the mindset I think where it's like I want like the people using my design system to be so lazy that they could like hate design, but they're like, you know what? I like the design system because it makes it easy, it's scalable, it's accessible. Mm-hmm. So I think that's like my bit of advice is like making sure that you not only design system for people that love design, but also build it for people that hate it.
Ooh, I love that. That's maybe another spicy take for you too. Of you hate inconsistencies and you're lazy. This is a great thing for you to get into. I love the way you started out with that, and it's a very honest thing though. Like you had mentioned, it helps establish those foundational building blocks and lets people, like you said, sort of grab and go too. I love those analogies. I think that's really helpful, especially for folks and people that are maybe not too familiar with the industry, sort of be like, oh, that's what it is, instead of like, oh, I have no idea. So thank you very much for sharing that and for sharing your honest opinion on all of that too. I greatly appreciate it, and hopefully so will our viewers. I'd love to ask you now too, just a few quick little questions. I call this segment, of course, very aptly named overrated or underrated. I'm going to throw a few terms your way, maybe some fonts, maybe some design things. And you can tell me if you think they're overrated or underrated.
Yeah, let's do it.
Perfect. So we're going to start off with a few fonts here. The first font is Inter. Do you think Inter is overrated or underrated?
I'll say underrated.
Underrated. All right. Good to know. Good to know. The next one is Helvetica. Overrated or underrated?
Damn, that's a tough one. I mean, I'm gonna say underrated because it's a classy font. Like it gets the job done. So, when it's classy, it can never be overrated.
Oh, I like that. There's so many of the sayings that you have that I'm like, damn, that would be a good swag or like a good merch. Like if you just created a shop with like all these different sayings of yours, I'm sure people would love that. That on a little needlepoint pillow for their office. This is fantastic.
No, funny thing, I have a doc like that already, so I'm going to add these right now. So.
Fantastic. Yeah. If you sold a shirt that says I work in design systems because I'm lazy and I hate inconsistencies, I think the design systems community would rally behind you. You could sell it at Clarity. This would be a great opportunity for you. Oh, I love that. I love that. A few more terms here for you. Naming your layers. Do you think that's overrated or underrated?
Damn, I would say overrated. Like it's overrated if you're working on features because designs are basically pictures, so like it's gonna get thrown away sooner or later. Mm-hmm. If it's for design systems, maybe it's underrated, but I'm gonna lean to overrated.
Good to know. Good to know. The next two are skeuomorphism and flat design. What do you think about those two?
Skeuomorphism, I would say that's overrated. Like I worked in the past, and I was like, yo, even when it was hot, I was like, this is so ugly. So I'm all for flat design because it could work any, like tablet, whatever. Like it's gonna work. So I would say like overrated for Scribblenauts and then underrated for flat design.
Perfect. I love that. That's it's similar to what we've been hearing from a few other people as well too. Like they're like, and they talk about like the pendulum too of like, oh, it was really hot at this point and now it's terrible, but like it might come back again. So we'll see. But good to know you're not a fan of skeuomorphism. That's that's very good. The last one here I have for you is artificial intelligence or machine learning. Do you think it's overrated or underrated?
I think right now it's overrated because look at Twitter and other places, and like every company is an AI company, and I'm like, wait, that's not possible. So so I'm just waiting for the bubble to burst because yeah, it can't last forever. So
All right, good to know. Good to know. And with that being said, what do you think about AI in relation to design systems? Have you noticed any good or significant improvements? Do you think that it will eventually become a big player in the design system space, or what do you think about that?
I think so. And kind of how I think about it is that, you hope for the best, but prepare for the worst. So, worst case scenario, AI is going to decrease the need for design system work by 80%. I think I think that in some cases might be fine. Like I've used it for like documentation and like creating like, um, you know, type definitions and all this stuff. And I think, it doesn't do everything well, but I think as an assistant, it works well. I know some people are very against it, but I think my thing is like I'm not thinking about like, hey, that's working in a first world country. Like, how do you feel about that? I know there's like many people in developing worlds and also places where they don't have the necessary uh, structures to be able to kind of build and leave like be like self-sufficient. So I think AI is going to definitely help out with like a lot of that stuff. But will it replace us? I don't think so. It's just going to basically shift our focus to like be more focused on like the problems and building features versus like, oh, what is a button and what's the documentation and all that stuff.
Awesome. I love to hear that. I always like the obviously the not alarmist takes of like it's gonna take our jobs. We're doomed. Everything is bad. But like I feel like more people are starting to understand like, oh, it's just gonna be another tool to help us out. And that assistant capacity that you mentioned, I think, is a very common one too. Could you tell us a little bit more about like any workflows or anything that you've actually tested out that maybe some other people can try out for themselves as well?
Yeah, for sure. So when I was working on this one component, it was kind of a case where it's like a million props, and I was like, okay, so I know I don't want to write this documentation myself, so I just asked ChatGPT. I was like, all right, here are all the props. This is like I gave it some like half-baked definition because like usually anytime I have props, I want to make sure that, especially for like someone that doesn't know anything about front end, it's like super clear like what it does. And then from there, like it gave me like a good answer, gave me the types and all that stuff. And I was like, all right, cool. Let me convert this into like a TypeScript definition so that like as a coder, I'm able to kind of see like what are the like the definitions for each of those props. Like if I didn't use ChatGPT, it probably take me like a couple hours. And then for that amount of work, it was like less than 30 minutes. So I would say like is a good assistant, especially for documentation, because I feel like documentation is part of it's part of the product of a design system, and you want to make sure that you're writing it in a way where it's very clear and concise. And I say one drawback with with AI in general is that like when it writes documentation, it makes it sound like you like writing like a SAT like yes. Summary where it's like use all these big words, and I'm like, okay, it's like I'm gonna have to edit this down. So so stuff like that where it's like it gets you like 80% there, and you just kind of like massage it a bit for that last 20%.
Okay, I like that. And I thank you again too for sharing a specific workflow that you've used. I hope that other folks can start trying it out, testing out, these different use cases too, because I think that's the best way to actually learn about how to do it is just get in there, and test it out for yourself too. So thank you very much. I appreciate the share there. When you think about design systems, when you think about AI, all this whole conversation about the future of design systems comes up. What do you think the future looks like for design systems?
Yeah, so I've been thinking about this a lot, especially like even before the AI. Because I think design systems definitely got mainstream. Like a lot of companies now have design system teams, and it's multiple people. I've in the past was like I was like team of one that's working on design systems and whatnot, and then I think in one height it was probably like 8 people, and I think when teams get that big, and also like when there's like not that much work, you tend to like work on stuff that isn't providing business impact. So one
Okay.
example is like I worked on a lot on like documentation sites and building them and designing them and whatnot. And I think this happened like last year where I was like, wait a minute, this is like a huge waste of time because like it's nice, but like there's a cost of like maintaining that and all that stuff where there's like tools that like you have Figma and you can have like Storybook and kind of have all these things that are like might not look great, but it gets the job done.
Mm-hmm.
So I think for me the biggest shift I see is that it's going to shift from like design system as a product where we're instead of building like UI components and documentation, all that stuff, like we shift to more of like a service model where it's like we're basically like extended arms or consultants for teams. And we're just basically like UI experts. So we're able to kind of like work with teams and making sure that their UI is scalable, modular, and consistent. And then as we see like how other teams work, we can kind of improve the workflow and the process a bit versus like, oh, we're just going to build a component and it's going to live in the design system. So I feel like there's going to be a shift for like working on a service model where we really focus on like the business impact and be able to kind of showcase like the RI of like design systems overall.
I love that. I think the tying it back to business value is so huge. I think that's a common concern or thing that we've seen so far just from conversations that are happening in the industry, not only just about like proving your worth as a design systems person, but also like how to connect it back to business metrics so that you can exactly say like, hey, we helped with all these different things you can come to the table prepared to. So I love that about tying it back to the business case too. We've got a few people live on LinkedIn here too. Elise said, "Amen. Nobody should ever be building a custom doc site ever again." And then Kelly said, "But it's fun." ... And Amy agreed that it was fun as well too. So so we've got some.
Oh no, it's fun. I that's like one of my favorite things to work on. But yeah, it's not like at the end of the day, people just do it just to like, hey, like have something to kind of like show people versus like it actually be an impact to like your consumers.
I like that. I like that a lot. One question too that I have for you that I wanted to get your take and opinion on here is we posted a poll earlier today, and so far the results are pretty split with one clear winner. But I'm curious to see what your take on this is, and it's who has the most control over a design system. Is it a designer, an engineer, or a product manager? And in your opinion, who do you think has the most control over the system?
Oh, hands down the engineer, because I worked as a designer working on design systems, and it was so hard to push change because like I could create the most beautiful UI, but if there's not enough engineer resources or maybe there's like constraints and all this other stuff, like it's not gonna happen. And I do believe that like it's definitely changing, especially with like more hybrid roles like design engineers and whatnot. But
Mm-hmm.
at the end of the day, like the engineers are actually building the thing that people are using. So I would say like rank them. I would say like engineer, designer, and product owner. Because I had never worked with a product owner on a design system team. So if you have one, you're lucky.
Good to know. Yeah, that and it's something too that we've seen because we had our CEO and co-founder Palin. She had a conversation with Alan Smith from Workday, and of course they've got a larger team because they're a larger company. And so he was talking about the design system PM and like having that role specifically created for that too. But I think what you're saying is sort of more common among a lot of other teams is that like if you're on a smaller team, you probably aren't going to have those resources or like the ability to hire on those different roles there too. So it's very interesting. I think there's two different conversations going on when it comes to design systems of like the enterprise side, like you said, of the teams that have these larger teams they can do versus like the teams of one. And I think that's a really interesting sort of dichotomy there between the two. If you had a choice, would you choose to work on a team of one, or would you rather work on a team that has, maybe like the 8 design system people that you used to have?
Oh man, that's a tough one. I wouldn't say like team of one is best, but I would say like a team of 3. And kind of how I would break it down, where it'd be like you have like a design engineer that's kind of like more of like acting as like a product owner and like be able to assist on both like design and engineer side. Then you have like a designer, and you have like a dedicated engineer. Like the engineer, like dedicated engineer could work on like pipeline stuff and like all that stuff that's more engineer focused. The designer can like, so everyone has like their role and like own slice of the pie. But I think that changes, especially when you like think about it from the more enterprise level. But I think for me, like my where it's like everyone had their role and it was like easy to make decisions, because I think with a bigger team you can have too many cooks in the kitchen.
Yeah, 100%. I love that ideal structure that you laid out, and sort of the actual roles too, specifically of like these are the people that I would bring on as my ideal team structure. I think that's super helpful for anybody really looking to even maybe get into design systems now if they're not currently, of like, hey, if you just want to start out, here's a great structure for you if you want to actually invest and have like a solid thing there too. So awesome. Very cool. Thank you for sharing. Another question too that we asked before was, in your opinion, do you think a component library is a design system? Can it be a design system? What is your take on that?
No, it's one of the parts of a design system, but it's not like a design system itself. I see all the time when people are like, oh yeah, I have this like UI library that's in Figma. That's like my design system. I was like, yeah, that's not a thing. But kind of the idea where it's like design system is like the UI portion of it, and then you have like documentation, and then you have kind of like the service model. So it's kind of service, process, and all that stuff. So I think all those combined together will create a design system. But if you have like, a React component library, or you have like a Figma component library and you call it a design system, it's definitely not.
All right. Good to know. Good to know. Thank you very much. I like having these official takes, like your official stamp of like, no, this is what I think. Because then it helps us sort of figure out like, oh, well, this is what Adekunle said. What do you think about that too? I think it just helps start these conversations too. So I appreciate you sharing all of your thoughts so very candidly. And on LinkedIn too, Elise said 3 seems like the sweet spot for her as well. And then Amy Ogg actually commented and mentioned that they're working on getting a design system PO at their company, and she can't wait. It'll free up a lot of time to make more progress on the roadmap and the goals. So it's interesting. I think maybe this like triad of the design system of the design engineer plus a designer and an engineer, maybe we'll start to see like these triads form in the design system world. And it's all thanks to you for bringing attention to it.
Oh, you're welcome. I mean, again, since I've been on sabbatical, there's all these ideas that's come out, so I'm like very straightforward. I'm unhinged, so apologies if everyone takes offense to it.
I think most of the people here are seeming to agree with you and are like, yeah, that's exactly what I think too. So I think you found your spot. This no tech summer was a fantastic break for you. And I'm very happy to hear that you're coming back refreshed and you're diving right into it too, because you've got clarity now here tomorrow and Thursday too. So that'll be a lot of fun. Get you back in it, back with all the people too. Well, thank you very much. Those were all of the official interview questions that I had for you here today. I've got a few rapid fire questions for you, and then we have a fun little activity as well too, where we put your design skills to the test. But so far, I've got about 3 questions here for you, and you can, these answers are supposed to be very quick. So at the top of your head, what do you think? If you had to guess, how many rectangles have designers created?
It has to be in the trillions. Even for me, it's been in the millions. So yeah.
Just for you, you're like, I contributed about 20, 30 million of those rectangles. So.
Oh, for sure.
we've gotten answers all the way from a few million up to like a gajillion or some like random like infinity made up number too. So we'll see. Maybe we'll actually find out. Maybe the design tools will release all their data and we'll find out sometime soon. But awesome. If you could describe design systems using just 3 words, what would those 3 words be for you?
Scalability, accessibility, and lazy.
And lazy, coming back to the, I like the lazy. I think it's like a great way of being like, hey, this is a very easy way to do things that doesn't require much effort. Like, isn't that the goal of all tech, is like finding ways to automate these processes?
Yeah, I think so. Like, again, it's like, who wants to design a button again? I'm at a point where I was like, I don't want to design. I don't want to think about a button. I don't want to think about anything. I just want to build. I just want to put stuff together and it works. Lazy sounds perfect.
This is great for your merch line. I can't wait to see the new additions after these calls. Oh, awesome. I love that. And one final question for you here today. If you could describe yourself using just 1 word, what would that word be?
Rebel, because I don't like to follow rules. So.
All right. I love that. Breaking the rules and design systems, bringing the lazy back, no tech summers. I can see there's a lot of rebellious things that I'm loving, and I hope to see more of that too. Well, thank you very much. We have come now to my favorite part of the show, where we put your design skills to the test. Where we ask you and our other esteemed guests to recreate the Zeppelin logo here in just 2 minutes using a web-based version of Microsoft Paint. So whenever you are ready, you are welcome to share your screen. And for those who are following along or want to participate too, the website that we use is called jspaint.app. So if you want to follow along, you can test out your skills there too. But we'll give you some time to pull it up, and I'll start the timer as soon as the first pixel hits your canvas there. Awesome. Okay, we see the canvas. Everything looks good. And we are ready for you whenever you are ready. And I'll start the time. I'll give you little reminders too. It'll be all good.
All right, let's go. It's so ugly.
Perfect. All right, we've got the first layer. We're looking good.
Okay. I don't even know how do you. How do you select stuff?
So I saw when Donnie did it. This is fantastic so far. When Donnie did it, he was able to select, I think, like the dotted box one, and just like drag the box, and you can drag and move it. That's what I've seen from him. He had some wild Microsoft Paint skills.
Oh man, I'm definitely not that. Wait, I think I got something. Hold on. No, that. Oh wait, that is. Oh Lord. No, I'm just gonna go with the flow. It's just we're gonna let it ride. There's a couple of orange boxes.
Yes.
Wait. It's more interpretation of. So.
Your own interpretation is perfect. That's why we do these. Is so we can just figure out like it. And now I love it personally because I get a little collection of like, over all the guests we've had, we can see like the progression and who did what too. I love it. So feel free to interpret it in any way that you'd like.
Okay, so we're definitely taking like abstract approach where it's like very pixelated and whatnot. So it's all about having fun,
Exactly.
How do you rotate this thing?
That's a great question.
Okay. Well, we're just gonna leave that for later. So And then we're gonna have some eyes, right? You got some eyes because it's
I
oh okay. We're gonna roll
I
with that.
Okay. I love it. I think this is fantastic. I really appreciate the
Okay.
departure from form. This is beautiful. I love that. I love the little he looks like he's ready to take on some of the biggest design to dev challenges. And I love that you've captured the spirit of the Zeppelin so authentically. So thank you very much for sharing. I will definitely ask you to save this later. But if you want to, you can stop sharing your screen. We can come back into the call and say our final little thank yous and goodbyes. But Adekunle, again, thank you. We just wanted to thank you again so much for coming on our show, sharing all of your spicy takes about design systems, and all of your other takes too. It's been an absolute pleasure. I hope that you do expand your merch line and include some of these incredible quotes. So I can't wait to see that. But if you'd like to let us all know where we can find you, what cool things you've got coming up after your sabbatical too, I'd love to give you the stage now.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, thanks for having me. I'm actually looking for clients in Q4. So if anyone's interested, hit me up. My website is my first name, last name, adekunleoduye.com. So definitely reach out. Clarity is happening tomorrow and Thursday. I think Elisa's on the chat. She'd be speaking. A lot of great people speaking. Definitely check it out. Tickets are still available. And yeah. And keep a lookout for our merch line because it's definitely happening.
I cannot wait for the announcement of your merch line here of all these gold quotes, and all, of course I'll send you the playback of all these too, so you can go back and figure out which are the ones that you wanted to take. That's fantastic. Well, thank you again so much, Adekunle. It's been an absolute pleasure to get to know you more, get to know what you think about all these fun topics too. So thank you very much for jumping on our show and for sharing and for your incredible recreation of the Zeppelin logo. I really do appreciate that. I hope you have a great rest of your week. Enjoy your time at Clarity. For everybody who's going, enjoy your time too. That's going to be a wonderful time. And we will see you all next time. So thank you all so much. Have a great rest of your day and take care. See you later.
Have a good one.
See ya.